struggle, you dare to win, you dare to...
RSK, let it play, boy.
And you've got the cultures that J. Sainsbury's consider African in black.
I might find a form in my melanin. Great state I'm in all states I'm in. I might find a form in my melanin. Great state I'm in all states I'm in. I might find a form in my melanin. Great state I'm in all states I'm in. I might find a form in my melanin. Black power.
Top Dog's in the house. We've got Michael and we've got Tony Walker in the house.
No. Tony, oh my God, look at this. Look at this. You got the Giants here today. You got Robin Walker, Tony Warner, and me.
Yeah, boy. He's the killer. We're coming with the teachers. The
Guys,
UK.
can I just see if I can experiment with my double screen? See if I can get my second screen to work. Is Tony talking?
Tony, can we hear you?
Can you hear me? Testing.
Oh
testing.
man, hey, I know that voice. I know that voice.
Morning, Tony. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. Very good.
Good. Much appreciated for supporting the cause. As always, before we begin, let me just remind the people, Dr. Llaila Afrika, Rites of Passage, Youth Exchange Program. It's not a one-time trip. This will be a continuous thing that we're pushing and that we want our young people to be going through. It'll be for 15 to 21-year-olds traveling to different parts of Africa, as well as exchanging across the diaspora. So that is what we're all here for. That is what we're giving out this information for to support.
And we're planning a youth and a man rites of passage this year, where we're asking for all adults to show in the youth how to go through this rites of passage, as well as the youth coming with us at the same time. And this is going to be planned in Congo. So if you are ready to register and ready to put your hands down, think you can do the rites of passage, you're much welcome to come along.
Yeah, most definitely, people. Sorry. Was you going to say something?
So, is Michael going to go first? Or is our brother Tony going to go first? Which one is it going to be?
Oh, I got that.
I'm gonna Queen.
Wait, did Tony volunteer? Tone?
Yeah,
what did you say?
first.
All right, that's fine.
All right, can I share my screen?
Yeah, just hit the share screen button and we'll bring that up.
I've lost everybody.
People, listen, hit that like button, people in the chat. Please hit that like button. There's too many of you people watching that have not hit that like button. Show appreciation for this information and for the brother's time. When you're ready, brother, just hit that share button, share screen button. And as well, people, if you're a first timer to Black Eyes TV, go ahead and subscribe. This is going to be way more content. And everybody who you've seen during the day, today and yesterday, have done previous videos. Some are first timers, but a lot of them have content already. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. You understand why you're over here.
All right, can you see my screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah, okay.
What can you see? Please tell me.
Yeah,
we're seeing it now. Coming soon here, African history.
All right, and let me just check that you can hear the audio too. So.
Silent right now to me.
Silent.
It's very low. If it's playing, it's low. I can't hear it.
All right. So let me see if I can make it a bit louder. Hold on a second.
I use an internal speaker.
No, I'm using it via share screen. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Let me try it
now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
So you can hear the words.
Is it playing?
Yeah. But it's low, but I can hear it. No, it's gone again.
Right. So Can you, marks out of 10, how good can you hear the sound?
It's not really here. I can't really hear it.
All right, fine. Well, I'll have to skip all the videos then. If you can't hear the sound. All right.
Well,
we can
hold up. Listen, sometimes there's a difference. When there's music playing in the background, that can distort it as opposed to if somebody's just talking. So I don't know what your clips are involving, but if it's just a straight talking clip, we'll try it anyway and see how everybody hears it. But when it's usually music playing in the background, it can distort.
Okay, well, let's just crack on then. So I shall begin now. All right, so this is a special one-off unique presentation for Terry Mr. Riggs and the Black History Weekender. My name is Tony Warner from a group called Black History Walks. We organize walks, talks, and films on the African history of London every single month of the year for the last 13 years. So it's 13 years of the walking, actually it's 14 years now, of the walking tours. And basically the walking tours take place in 12 different parts of London, north, east, south, and west. And we take people on roughly a 2-hour kind of journey around the local area. It could be Trafalgar Square, Notting Hill, Elephant Castle, Mayfair, Hackney, etc. And we show them all the Black history, which is right there in the streets, in the architecture, in the buildings. It's there, and we expose that history to people. And as I said before, we got walks in 12 different areas. Soho, Docklands, etc. And we just basically show people or give people back the history that's been there in the first place. And we've been going for, like I said, 13 years, well, 14 years now. And individuals come, groups come, sometimes even corporations come on their day, their staff day out, and we kind of give them this kind of Black history, which is literally all over the capital city. There's a big posh magazine called Condé Nast Traveler, and they've put us in the top or the best 15 walks in London. That was like a year and a half ago. And also the Guardian back in 2011 put us in the top 10 walks. We've been featured on CNN, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, German TV, and we're currently working on 2 documentaries now for broadcast in October. Apart from doing the walking tours, we have a river cruise. River cruise goes from Embankment area, not far from where that big London Wheel is, all the way down to Greenwich and back. So it's a 3-hour tour. And what we do on the river cruise is we go, along the River Thames, and we expose and explore and explain all the Black history that's on the riverside, because there's Black history on each side of the River Thames, and there's Black history within the river itself, and there's Black history, in the sky above the River Thames. It's just everywhere, right? And in addition to actually having this guided tour via boat on the river, 3 hours long, we have historical characters of African Caribbean descent connection who are actually portrayed on the boat by various actors and actresses. So, for example, if you come on a river cruise in the future, you will get to meet Nanny of the Brooms. She'll be on the boat with her swords and her weapons, and she'll speak about who she is, where she came from. If you come on a river cruise in the future, we'll have General Alexandre Dumas, who is the highest ranking Black general in Napoleon's army. And actually, he was a rival to Napoleon. Napoleon didn't like him because he's a big, strong, tough, good-looking Black guy. But that guy has an amazing story. And if you come on the boat, you get to meet him and hear his adventures. You'll also get to meet and hear from Queen Amaryllis, who was an African warrior queen who mashed up the Romans in what we call Sudan now, more than 2,000 years ago. So that's the sort of thing we do on the river cruise. But apart from doing the river cruise, we also have a bus tour. So we have a 3-hour bus tour, which kind of drives around north, east, south. We go from sort of Brixton to Clapham to Westbourne, part of the Tower Hill. And again, we show the Black history from a double-decker. But it's not a bus, it's a luxury coach. But the cruises and the bus tours are suspended at the moment due to the whole virus situation. But they'll be coming back shortly, so just check out our website. So it's walks, bus tours, river cruises, and then we have talks. And today you're going to get a little sample of some of our talks. So we have, 13 years worth of talks covering a variety of different subjects. And this is a typical audience for one of our events. This is how Jamaicans ended slavery, and it does what it says in the tin. And you can see there's about 400 people up in that place. That was at the University of Westminster, not far from Oxford Street, and it was a 400-seat lecture theatre, and it was packed out. And we went through how Jamaicans mashed up the slave master and that led to the actual English abolishing slavery. But that's just one of many topics we do, because we also have another topic looking at Black people in World War II. As we know, Black people were involved in World War I and World War II, and this is another packed house at the Imperial War Museum. So this was actually delivered in the War Museum itself, in the heart of the organization. And we just told the truth about the Black contribution, because it was an enormous contribution from Africa and the Caribbean, without which Britain could not have won the war, which is why it's titled like that. So in this presentation, we go through, it's actually 3 hours long, and we go through individuals, we go through resources, we go through countries which helped Britain to win the war, but then Britain forgets to mention them when they're talking about World War II. So for example, just yesterday, they were going on about how it was Victory over Japan Day, but they forgot to mention that there's a whole bunch of like West Africans and East Africans from Africa who were out there fighting against the Japanese. There was regiments of African people, African men mostly, who are out there fighting the Japanese in Burma and Malaysia. We've got the documents, photographs, records, there's a couple of books about it. But when it comes to this VJ Day or VE Day or any kind of World War II remembrance, they almost always forget to leave out this kind of Black contribution. So we make a point to actually address that lack of coverage. So today we're going to look at a little bit of London history right here in the UK. And if you look at the list of laws there, each law had to be fought for, argued for, lobbied for by people in this country. So we tend to hear a lot about American civil rights, but right here, there was a massive struggle to get equality for Black people here. And if you look at the first law comes in 65. So before 1965, there are no laws to protect people from race discrimination. It doesn't exist at all. So you can be as racist as you want, and it's legal. And you can also see that there's 65, 68, 76, and then 2000. So there's at least 4 laws specifically about race discrimination. Each of those laws had to be fought for, and we'll look at some of the people who fought for these laws, which we right now are benefiting from. Now, if this was, because normally we do things face-to-face in person, and our stuff is always interactive. So if this is a face-to-face thing, I'd be saying, all right, people in the room, where is this street? I'd ask people that question, and you can have a go yourself. You can't see what you're saying, but I can imagine you might be saying, this is obviously Tottenham Court Road, because it actually says that in the top left-hand corner. So sometimes you just test people, see what they can see. So this is Tottenham Court Road, and you can see on the right-hand side, there's a street there. Now that street is called Great Russell Street, and that street is vital or very important to Black British history and to Black British civil rights. I'll show you why in a moment. So if you turn into that street from Tottenham Court Road Tube Station, well, here's a map actually. So there's a tube station on the left-hand side bottom corner. You got Great Russell Street there, and actually the British Museum is on the same street. You can see it right there. So British Museum, of course, is literally full of African history. We call it the Museum of Stolen Goods because stuff in there is mostly stolen. But before you even get to British Museum, there's a whole bunch of Black history, because one of these men had his meetings in Great Russell Street in the 1930s. So on the left-hand side, everyone knows who this guy is. His name is Dr. Martin Luther King, and we know he was a doctor and a preacher and a civil rights activist in America. He came to prominence in America in 1955. With the Montgomery bus boycott. So left-hand side, Luther King, right? Doctor, preacher, civil rights leader in America who came to prominence in 1955. On the right-hand side, you have Dr. Harold Moody, who was a Jamaican doctor who studied at King's College in the early 1900s and came top of his class. He experienced discrimination while studying, found it really hard to get a place to stay. And then once he qualified top of his class, he found it hard to get a job. So he's a qualified Black doctor in 1920s, 1930s UK. Couldn't get a job in the mainstream organization, so actually sets up his own practice in Peckham. He becomes the first Black doctor in Peckham. And apart from being a very successful, very brave doctor, because what he would do, he'd actually kind of go onto bomb sites, because he was active during World War II. He would actually go onto bomb sites just after bombs had dropped in World War II and rescue people and treat people who'd been injured by the bombs. So he's quite a brave man and quite a popular man, because he was also given free medical assistance. This is before the NHS, by the way. So this guy was very popular. But because of his experience of discrimination as a black man living in 1920s, 1930s England, he said, what can I do to help my people? So he says, I'm going to set up a group called the League of Colored People, which will fight for equality for black people in this country. So he sets up a civil rights group called the League of Colored People, which is fighting for equality when it comes to discrimination in housing, education, employment, and the military. Because at this time, 1930s, there's a color bar in the armed forces. If you're black, you can't become an officer. And Harold Moody says that's ridiculous. You can't have that. So he actually lobbies to have black people become officers in the armed forces, and it's successful. He also lobbies to have black nurses be given jobs, to be given accommodation. He sticks up for civil rights in America. So this man here, Harold Moody, is a civil rights leader right here in the UK. And guess what? He's a doctor. He leads a civil rights group here, and he's also a preacher. He had a church. This man had a church down in Camberwell. So left-hand side is an African-American who had a civil rights group in America in the 1950s. Luther King is taught in schools here. If your kid goes to school in this country, either primary school, secondary school, they'll be taught about Luther King in America. Harold Moody was doing exactly the same thing here in the 1930s. Doctor, preacher, civil rights leader, fought for equality in housing, education, etc. He is not on the curriculum, and most people have never heard about this guy. So how do you explain that situation? We have an American who was doing civil rights activism in America in the 50s, and he's actually on the curriculum in this country. But this brother, this Jamaican brother, or Jamaican British brother, who was doing the same thing here in London, in England, in the 1930s, he's not even mentioned in passing. So there is a plaque to Dr. Harold Moody down in Peckham in 164 Queens Road, Peckham. So if you're Peckham, you can go look for itself. That's where he used to have his practice. And actually, he would host lots of famous African Americans and famous Africans too, like people like Jomo Kenyatta. But that's another story. Let me just get on with the point here. So there's a plaque for him there, but the venue that he would have his meetings at was the YMCA, which is located in Great Russell Street. So if you walk down this street and take a left, you get to Dockport Road Tube Station. In fact, look, on the left-hand side, what flag is that? It's the Barbados High Commission. So that's the Barbados High Commission right there, opposite the YMCA. And in the 1930s, that's where Harold Moody was having his meetings for equality for black people. And that included people like Jomo Kenyatta and Paul Robeson and C.L.R. James and all these kind of giants of, the African kind of struggle for equality. And they would meet in the YMCA, because at this time, the YMCA was still a youth hostel then, and it was a popular place for young black people to stay because it was less racist than the other places, yeah? So it was less racist than the other places. So if you went to the YMCA, you could at least get a cheap bed and some food and a place to stay. So it was a natural meeting point for Harold Moody and other activists. Now, there was no plaque there to tell you this story. You'd have no clue there's any black history if you walk down the street, unless you came on our walk, of course, because we have a walk which goes past and we tell you, well, this is history here. So what we did is we teamed up with a guy called Nubian Jack. And between Black History Walks and Nubian Jack plaques, we raised funds and erected a plaque in honor of Dr. Harold Moody, so that if you walk down that street now, you can't miss a big blue plaque just over the entrance that says Harold Moody, Jamaican British doctor, set up a group called League of Colored Peoples back in 1931. So that is what we call do for self, Garvey initiative. Because we didn't wait for English heritage, we didn't wait for anyone else. We just thought, let's just do it ourselves. And we did it within a year. Between the decision to actually put the plaque up and actually putting it up was within a year. And what we did was we used the river cruises and the bus tours to raise the funds for the plaque, and the plaque is there now, and it'll be there for another, well, hopefully 50 or odd years, if not longer. And when we did the launch, we had, a couple of mayors came down, we had some World War II veterans come down, we had S. Danson come down, we had some celebrities come down, and that is an example of Garveyism in action. It's an example of do for self, and it's a way of repairing the damage caused by a racist history curriculum. And this is one that's in Peckham, and it's a book. Actually, there's a few books in here, but once you know the name, you can actually research for yourself. Now, let's again make it interactive. So I don't know how many people are on this Zoom call or chat or whatever it is you want to call it, but I wonder how many people can answer this question. Who can tell us rather, what was the name of the black classical musician who lived in Peckham and went to Cambridge? Who could answer that question? So the next bit is a video, so I'm hoping it's going to work. If not, if it doesn't work, I'll just tell you verbally, but let's see if we can make this video work. Let's find out the answer to this question. Who could this black classical musician be that lived in Peckham and went to Cambridge? So there's a video. Let's see if it works.
You know what?
Parents serve European aristocrats. Black
Was it not working?
It's not clear. Tony, come out, right? Come out and then come back in. In the when you're selecting it from the thing, press audio on your left. There's an audio button where it says you click on it.
All
So
right.
come back now.
Yeah.
Can you see audio when you're choosing application?
I can actually see audio. I can see share screen, leave studio, mute.
Okay, so press share screen.
Press share screen, yeah.
And then on the bottom, you see an audio click. It says to click on audio.
Oh, it says follow these steps to share video with audio. So let me do that now.
Yeah.
Screen sharing. Chrome tab. I've got to do something with Chrome. Okay.
You done it?
I'm still trying to follow the instructions. Do this extra tab that we're talking about.
He said someone said it doesn't do it for PowerPoint, as far as I am aware.
Well, it's not a big deal. I can do it verbally. No big deal. I can just do it verbally. People
All right, just
so I will just go back to the thing. Let me. Oh, hang on. I've got to find it now. Right. Can you see the screen now again?
Oh, it hasn't come up here.
Is it there now?
I can't see it.
What can you see?
I'm waiting for you to share the screen.
I am sharing my screen. You can't see anything?
Did you press the screen in the middle of the StreamYard?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just do it again. Share screen. Share screen. Oh, I see. Click on that again. Oh, hang on. That's the video. Yeah, I think I've done it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me bring it up.
All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
All right. Let me try the video, the audio now, because I think I pressed the right button this time.
I'm not sure too many musicians say that Beethoven composed
There we go.
but George Augustus Paul Greenbridge Tower can say just that. He was born in Poland to a German mother and West Indian father. Both his parents served European aristocrats, which meant that George grew up in a castle complete with a puppet theatre and opera house. Like Mozart, he was a child prodigy and toured with his violin to places such as Bath, Bristol, and London. One French journal said, "His talent is one of the best replies one can give to philosophers who wish to deprive people of his nation and his colour of the opportunity to distinguish themselves in the arts." George came to Trinity Hall in 1811 at the age of 30 to complete a bachelor's degree in music. To earn this, he had to do an exercise which involved writing a musical composition to poetry and performing it with a full orchestra at Great St. Mary's Church. Fluent in English, German, French, Italian, and Polish, he mixed with royalty and musicians across Europe. He was a great friend of Beethoven, who called him a virtuoso and composed for him a sonata for pianoforte and violin in A. George even made some alterations to the violin part, which Beethoven responded to by saying, "Noch einmal, mein lieber Bursch." Unfortunately, George and Beethoven fell out after George insulted a female friend of Beethoven's. Beethoven was so incensed that he actually scratched out the dedication to George and gave it to another violinist called Kreutzer, who didn't even attempt to play the piece, saying that it was too hard. Since his death at the age of 81 in Peckham in South London, there have been many more dedications to George that haven't been scratched out, dedications that appear in films, plays, and even in a jazz opera. As I reflect on the life of George Bridgetower, I am so amazed at how excellent this man was. I think it's interesting that throughout history, many Black people have been omitted, scratched at, or censored. But today we are curating and we're remembering someone who was an excellent violinist, an excellent person in the field of classical music. And it's just a representation of how Black excellence continues to thrive today.
There you go. So look, the information is out there. It's just worth making people fully aware of it. So that was George Pauline Bridgetower. Again, you have his name, you can Google him, it'll come up. And there's a whole bunch of Black classical musicians from the 1800s who were doing the thing. They were doing amazing work. They were actually, skilled songwriters. They were kind of famous. They're directing operas. And it's just the fact is that they've been kind of left out and suppressed from history. So our job is to actually give the history back. And as you heard, they lived in Peckham. So we don't exactly what the address was, but guess what? When we find out the street and the address, we'll put up a plaque to him too. All right. Now, I mentioned films in our kind of repertoire of events that we do. So we do walks, talks, films, put up plaques, and we've been showing films at the BFI for 14 years. Now, outside the BFI, we've been showing films for like 20 years. But we're doing stuff with the BFI. And that program is called the African Odysseys Program. And basically, we show an African diasporic film once a month, each month, all year long for the last 14 years now. Normally on a Saturday afternoon from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And in addition to showing the film, we always make sure to have a Q&A with the director, producer, or the actor, etc., to give more value and education to the actual event. And this is something that is unusual because, first of all, it's hard to, some of these films here have never been shown by any kind of mainstream cinema. So some of these films, in fact, you can ask yourself, how many of these films in this one slide have you seen? Because we've shown thousands of films by now. And what we know is that the films we show are never, ever shown by mainstream cinemas. It could be Odeon, Cineworld. They don't show these kind of films for reasons you can work up for yourself. So we make a habit of showing these films. And when we show them, we put on a Q&A to give people the best experience, because you might come and watch a film like Lumumba and think, right, is that really true? And the fact is, it is true, but until you see it and discuss it and debate it and do your research, it may not kind of make sense or penetrate. So for each of these films we show, we have a Q&A to make sure people really fully appreciate this history and indeed why this history is suppressed back in the 60s, but also now. So for example, if you look at the Shirley Chisholm film, that says 1972, and that's because Shirley Chisholm, a woman of Barbadian and Guyanese heritage, who was an African-American, ran for president of America in 1972, which many Americans don't even know. So there's a whole film on her, and the film is about 15 years old. We showed that film ages ago. Next to her, you got Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba, first black leader of the Congo, assassinated by the Belgians, although they said never did at the time. Fantastic, amazing, award-winning film. That didn't get released here neither. Great Debaters was based on a true story, starring Denzel Washington and Forest Whitaker, who were both big stars. It came out in America. It made some money in America. But guess what? It was never released in cinemas here. It was never in the Odeon or Cineworld or wherever it is. It was just wasn't there. For some reason, even though it's like a big movie with big stars in it on a true story of Black excellence, Black academic excellence. So we showed it at the, actually it was at the Trisol Theatre we showed it, and people came out. But for all the films you're going to see here that we show, you tend to find they've been ignored, suppressed, covered up, messed up by the mainstream. So you can work out for yourselves what happened, but we make a habit of showing these films plus Q&A. So if you hear the term African Odysseys, that's one of our films, and we tend to show them at the BFS South Bank, which is next to Waterloo. So if you hear about it in the future, come down. Now, at the moment, of course, everything's suspended because of the whole virus thing. But cinemas open some cinemas open at the end of August, so we'll see how things go from then on. And because the physical events have been suspended, we're doing we're doing a whole bunch of online events. So a lot of our talks are now online, and some of our films are going to be online, including this one. This is a brand new film. It's going to be released 20th of August here. We have a premiere. We're going to have a panel discussion with some of the stars, the people in the documentary, and you can see the names there. You got Dr. Leonard Jeffries, legend; Dr. Wade Noble's legend; Boyce Watkins, kind of new guy in the block, so to speak; Professor James Small, legend; Dr.
Yeah,
say that again.
I said we've got him later on today.
Is it? Oh, well, there you go then, right? So this film is all about Black economic empowerment and Black economic history. So they're going back to the Nile Valley. So Happy is an old name for the Nile Valley civilization, and they're looking at how did the Nile Valley civilization become so powerful, so wealthy, so accomplished from an economic perspective. Then they're looking at modern day Black economic empowerment. How can we make money to fund our activities and to make us safe from oppression? So it's a new film. We're premiering the 28th of August. You can get your tickets online now. You can go to our website, which is blackhistorywalks.co.uk. So it's blackhistorywalks.co.uk and get a ticket for that. And that's what we're going to do. In fact, this is going to work now. Let me show you the trailer rather than waffling on. Let me show you the trailer.
Y'all don't be fooling around out there with truth. Nothing secret.
There is a connection between every institution grown out of this country and white supremacy, the nation as a whole, including its laws and its institutions.
What you have is a tension between nationalism and globalism.
They had to create something in the mind of the poor whites that distinguished them and separated them from the blacks. And that's where you develop what I call, and James Baldwin called, the religion of whiteness.
The police that answer to the politics of that community are going to be driven by the economics of that community because economics and politics overlap.
You know why I wanted to be a politician in a time when we disenfranchised? Because of power.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
Tamir Rice, Sean Bell, Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, and Michael Brown, just to name a few.
Some may incorrectly classify their death as police brutality. However, it is in fact murder and a form of terrorism that is ironically very similar to what took place during chattel enslavement. What steps can be taken to make it stop?
Ain't the devil happy?
All right, so that is on the 28th of August, 7:30. You can get tickets online now from blackhistorywalks.co.uk. It should be a very interesting event. And other than that, hold on a second. Yeah, back to these laws again, because we know a lot about what happened in America. Let's talk about what happened in the UK. So let's see who can get this question correct. So if you read information there, who can guess or who knows who this sister is? Because this sister is a legend, or I should say was a legend, because she's just passed on this year, right? But this woman did so much for the community here. She fought against white supremacy in this country. She did amazing work. In fact, I can't do it justice in the 2 minutes I got here, but just to make a long story short, this woman is Dame Jocelyn Barrett. And I'm going to give you one example of the sort of struggles that she took on and actually overcame in London, in Oxford Street in the 1960s and 70s. So check this out. You can see her speaking for herself here now.
We were quite happy to employ coloured people, providing they weren't visible. In other words, if they worked in the kitchens, that was all right. But employers felt that shoppers wouldn't like to see coloured hands handling food over the counter.
Let me just rewind that, right? So there was a colour bar in Oxford Street. The employers, white employers, did not want to have black people working in the shops there because it was seen as somehow a bad thing, right? This is England. This is not Alabama, not Kentucky, not Tennessee. This is right in the UK. But see if you can find this history referred to in our curriculum, which is taught here about our history in the UK. You hear a lot about what happened in America. This is taking place in London, and Dame Jocelyn Barrett took it on.
We were quite happy to employ coloured people, providing they weren't visible. In other words, if they worked in the kitchens, that was all right. But employers felt that shoppers wouldn't like to see coloured hands handling food over the counter. They thought that ladies wouldn't be happy to buy their underwear from coloured girls.
To get black people in shops, we actually had to get the cooperation of one of the key persons in the Oxford and Regent Street Traders Association. And this person said to me, if you can find me, and I want you to listen carefully, for pretty black girls, pretty in quotation marks, I will employ them. And then my colleagues will follow.
All right, so Dame Jocelyn Barrett mashed up, brought down the colour bar on Oxford Street. Also in Brixton, she did the same thing because there was a Marks and Spencer in Brixton which would not employ black people until she went in there and cussed them off and made them employ black people. So, like I say, she deserves a whole hour-and-a-half long documentary. But basically, she died this year, just a couple months ago. And what we're gonna do, I say we're gonna do it. Yeah, we're gonna do it. Is that there's no plaque in her honor, there's no statue in her honor, and because she's done such an amazing amount of work, we're gonna work on some sort of physical recognition as to what she did. What you're looking at here is the fact that she was in a group called Campaign Against Racial Discrimination. So this is, again, it was a civil rights group based here in London, which she was a prominent member of, and that group helped to push change in Oxford Street, in education, in schools, etc. So she did a massive amount of work. She needs to have a lot more recognition than she's got so far, and we're going to work to make that happen. Another guy needs a lot more recognition is a guy called Baron Baker. So I don't know how many people in this room chat group have heard about Baron Baker, but I guarantee you're going to respect him when you hear about what he was doing, because Baron Baker was a man who was living in the Notting Hill area in the 1950s at a time when gangs of white men would drive up in there specifically to attack and beat up black people. And Baron Baker said, hell no, this ain't going to happen. And Baron Baker set up a black self-defense group in Notting Hill to mash up these racist people, and he did so. You're going to hear from him himself in this little clip here.
He was deeply affected by what was happening.
Very fearful, very insecure. Nobody wanted us, still less. Nobody liked us. What the hell were we doing here in this situation when we were given to believe that we were coming here, in fact, to a home away from home?
With the white mob out to menace them and the lack of protection from the police, the black community decided enough was enough. A meeting was convened in Toto Bag's Blues Club at number 9 Blenheim Crescent.
During the day, we made preparations for the attack.
And I can quite clearly remember that I was standing on the second floor with the lights out in Blemon Crescent. When I look out and see from Kensington Park Road to Portobello Road was a massive lot of people out there. And I distinctly hear when they say, let's burn the niggers. Let's lynch the niggers. And from those spoken words, I said, start bomb them. And then we you see the Molotov cocktail bombs coming out from number 9%. Then they say, oh, they are bombing us too. I said, open the gate and throw them back where they are coming from. And they will come from Latimore Road area and things. Then when the police saw the amount of people that was in number 9, they drove the Black Maria and rammed the gates and said, not another one of you black bastards coming out. And I was arrested immediately. But from then on, the rest of my colleagues took over.
I saw a large crowd of coloured men, about 30, walking along Blenheim Crescent towards Ladbroke Grove. They were completely blocking the footway, and I heard shouts of, what about it now?
I had a motorbike, and I was riding down Westbourne Park Road, and a friend of mine came flying up towards me and leapt on the back of the bike and said, turn around, I'm being chased. And I thought it was somebody who left my road mob chasing him, and there was a load of blacks in a van chased me around. Black people were going round, black young kids were going round in vans with those shuttered doors, and they were throwing the doors open and jumping out and attacking white people, young people, incidentally. So he was caught up in one of those scrapes, came flying up the road, jumped on the back of my bike, and we shot away. That was when I realised it was real.
The police also witnessed this new black aggression.
I approached a coloured man who appeared to be holding a carving knife. He said, I'm only carrying this for protection. You want to get those white bastards.
The situation was so bad that we fell in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're going to be killed or we're going to be beaten up, well, let's bloody well have a go. Not me personally, but I remember seeing convoys of black men coming over from Brixton, night after night after night, not only to represent themselves, but to represent those of us who were too scared to go out. And if any black group took the brunt of the violence, Jamaicans from Brixton took it. They saved our skins from being mauled even more than we were.
All right, so that's just a bit about Baron Baker. Baron Baker was a bad man, as you could tell.
I know, this is the real first.
And the thing with Baron Baker is that, like I say, he set up this self-defense group and he went to work to protect the community from white racists. And again, I could talk about him for all by himself, but he was not by himself. He had people like him who were down with the serious business of fighting and would come in from other areas, as you just heard. The guys were coming from Brixton, but not just from Brixton. They came from Tower Hamlets, from Harrow. They were coming from Shepherd's Bush to back up their brethren. And as you know, I should tell you, we have a walk in Notting Hill. So the Notting Hill Walk talks about Baron Baker in more detail. We show you where these things took place. And one of the powers of history is that when we've had young people, let's say teenagers, on this walk, and they've heard that man was leaving Brixton to come to Notting Hill to back up their brethren, they're like, rah, why then are we now fighting our own brethren from a different postcode? They said themselves, they just heard the history and it made them question their behavior. So this is one of the parts of history that, when you have these young people involved in this kind of walking tours, they begin to kind of question and think about how they got to be where they are and why they do certain things. But this is why we do what we do, to actually make sure people actually have access to the history and make them think about how they behave in the future. And speaking of accessing your history, we have a talk. This is an online talk looking at the riots of 1919. So long story short, before the riots of 1950 at Notting Hill, there were riots across the UK in 1919. They took place in Liverpool, Newcastle, Cardiff, London, and this talk is all about these riots, why they took place, where they took place, and how the Black community defended itself against racial attacks. So it's very interesting, because people were not kind of disorganized. People were actually raising funds to pay the bail of Black guys who've been imprisoned by the police. People were actually organizing armed. And when I say armed, I'm not talking about guns, I'm talking about guns were involved in this resistance. And that there's in Butte Town, there was a lot of ex-soldiers, Black soldiers, who actually began to defend themselves from these racist people with weapons. But if you're interested, that's the event to come to. It's an online event, 25th of August, £6 to come in and check it out. Now, some of you are probably wondering, this guy, Tony from Blackish Shorts, I wonder what he looks like. You're probably thinking, I wonder what this guy looks like, because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. So I just thought I'd show you what I look like. Yeah, this is me this morning in the backyard. Yeah, so every morning when I wake up, I go in the backyard. So you probably want to see it again. Oh, let me show you a little piece again. Look, watch it. And now don't try that at home, yeah, because you have to be skilled. But that's what it looked like in the morning. So anyhow, the next thing that we got coming up is Hip Hop to Opera to via Negro Spirituals. This is presented by Dr. Kimberly Hawkins. She's a trained classical opera singer. She's going to explain, and she's also going to sing the connection between your regular hip hop from LL Cool J, right back to what we call Negro spirituals and African singing systems, which were imported from, of course, Africa to the Americas, and opera. So that is on the 13th September. £6 ticket. Come in, check it out. This is a well-educated professor from the USA who's an expert in this area, and she'll be singing as well as giving us examples of this documented history between the connection between hip hop and opera and Negro spirituals. Then we have this event, which is on Tuesday. This is Professor Sairisi Olatunji. She's an expert in trauma and intergenerational trauma, and she's going to speak about intergenerational trauma in Louisiana, New Orleans, and Haiti, and the African diaspora. And she's a full professor. She teaches for a living. But for those of you who don't know what intergenerational trauma is, it's like this. Let's say as a 10-year-old kid, you got bit by a dog. The dog mashed up your leg. The dog bit you up, yeah? So it will be kind of obvious maybe that you'd be a bit scared of dogs after that, especially if you had no kind of coping mechanism, no kind of counseling to deal with that trauma. So you have a child now. Now you don't actually tell your child to be scared of dogs, but your child sees you being scared of dogs, and he picks up on that behavior. That's an example, a very simple, basic example of what you could call intergenerational trauma. And it can happen for one single event, or it can happen for multiple events, and it can go on for a very long time. So when you think about, so basically, if you come to this event, she'll explain in detail what this is all about and how it links into Black people's situation in different parts of the world, and how people can heal and recover from the trauma that's been inflicted in the past and even now. So we'll move on back to, this is titled African Animations, Ancient and Modern. What we're doing here is we're looking at how Hollywood cartoons, so not Hollywood movies, live action, we're talking about cartoons now. Hollywood cartoons have ripped off a lot of African myth. So a lot of African stories from Africa were transported from Africa to the Americas, to the Caribbean, and some of these stories have been ripped off and whitewashed and then sold back to us as Disney or Warner Brothers or Daffy Duck, whatever, and we'll explain that connection with evidence. We're not just saying it, we've got evidence, right? On top of that, we'll also be looking at African or Black-owned studios in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, and in the Caribbean, in Martinique and in Trinidad, we'll be giving examples of Black-owned studios that are making animated content that features Black superheroes, male and female, and some of the superheroes they're creating for themselves are based on Caribbean myths and African stories as well. So we're looking at the old way of Hollywood ripping off Black stories with, you know, their whitewash characters, but also we're looking at Black-owned studios who are making their own fantastic, beautiful animations using African myth, but also sometimes real African history to inspire their characters. And that's on 11th September. And then you got, oh, this is a good one. Well, they're all good ones actually, but this is really interesting because everyone knows about Marvel. Everyone knows that Stan Lee was the big brains behind Marvel. Well, Stan Lee himself was a committed, a communist? I didn't say that. I'll say that he was a committed campaigner for equality. And within some of his comic book heroes, he would tell the stories of the civil rights struggle in America. So basically, you see his stories are often a metaphor for the African-American history in America. And it's not like I'm just saying that. I can give you quotations from him, which says that he's introducing politics into his comic book characters. And he's asking if it is okay to do so. We got him saying it. We got people who worked with him saying it. And that's part of the story. The other part of the story is that some of the stories that Stan Lee was telling were also based on African mythology. And we have the evidence, we got the documents that we received. So that's actually, this one here is a combined presentation between Black History Walks and a guy called Andrew Mohammed. So it's a double build. So that'll be interesting too. And then we have this one, which again, we're kind of famous for doing our movie breakdowns. And that's again, me and Andrew Mohammed, we're looking at the Planet Apes movies and how the Planet Apes movies were again metaphors for the civil rights struggle in America with evidence. So we got directors' comments, actors' comments, we got the original books, the original TV series, we got scenes in the movies which are actually either set in certain significant locations or replicate situations which took place in the civil rights struggle in America. And we have the evidence to prove it's actually a two-part thing. It's like 4.5 hours long altogether. But that's taking place 18th September, and the information is on our website, which is blackhistorywalks.co.uk. And don't forget, our book comes out in October. So we've written a book. The book is titled Black History Walks in London Volume 1. And basically, if we have 12 walks all together, I've put 2.5 of the walks into this one book. Yeah. So basically, some of the stuff I've been mentioning here in the last 45 minutes or so is going to be in the book, plus a whole bunch more, because the book is 90,000 words long. It's 90,000 words long, right? To do a PhD, it's only £70,000, 70,000 words, I should say. So it's going to be quite an interesting, packed out book. And that is it.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, just give your info of how to reach you.
Yeah, it's at the bottom there. It's blackhistorywalks.co.uk, blackhistorywalks.co.uk, and also we're on Instagram, Twitter, etc.
Okay.
That was beautiful.
What legacy are you leaving behind?
The Black Family First program aims to reconnect the family at the root.
Healing both ancestral and personal trauma by way of creating bonds through communication, understanding, reason, compassion, connecting oneself to family, friends, and the community.
Reminding the older generation to be role models and mentors, and in turn, teaching the younger generation the building blocks on how to live, love, and respect one another for a stronger family union.
That way, the next generation bears the fruits of our labor and our experiences. Black Power starts with your melanin, uniting the Black family first.
And we won't have to cry no more. And we won't